Gender changes have long been done in county circuit courts, but a new memorandum decision by W.Va Supreme Court might challenge trans rights. The memorandum decision details the story of a minor who petitioned for a change of gender designation on their birth certificate in Wood County. According to the decision, the minor successfully underwent female to male transition gender reassignment surgery last year. The Wood County Circuit Court denied the petition, referencing a West Virginia code which stated that, in short, amending a birth certificate to reflect a gender change did not fall within the statutory authority of the court. The petitioner appealed the circuit court's ruling to the state Supreme Court, who voted 4-1 to uphold the circuit court's decision, quote, in order to protect the integrity and accuracy of vital records. James Barber is a lawyer in Kanawha County who has helped transgender individuals in the past with changing their gender marker. He says the procedure to change a gender marker does not erase the old birth certificate, but rather simply amends it.
They do not issue a new birth certificate. They don't go back and issue a new one or change it or block out. They simply cross through. If it said male, they cross through the M and put an F, or vice versa. So it's an amended birth certificate. It's not erasing what was there. It's just simply making a change to conform to the reality of the fact that the person is female or male, whichever the case may be.
Birth certificates are not medical or scientific documents. When a baby is born, the doctor does not issue a birth certificate. Instead, the doctor fills out a form which attests to a live birth that they witnessed. And then sometime later, our state's Vital Statistics Office issues a birth certificate. Also, West Virginia is the 4th state in the country that will now not allow transgender people to amend the sex marker on their birth certificates. Prior to this recent decision from our state Supreme Court, only Tennessee, Ohio, and Kansas did not allow this type of correction.
A study by Williams Institute says that West Virginia has the highest percentage of transgender teens in the nation, and for some, being able to change a gender marker is an issue of safety.
This decision from West Virginia Supreme Court is archaic and discriminatory, and it seems to require transgender people to pretend to be something other than the gender that they are. It exposes transgender mountaineers to further harassment and discrimination.
One important thing for people to understand here is that everyone, including transgender people, need access to updated identification to go about daily life, right? To travel, to apply for jobs, go to school, enter public establishments, obtain benefits. So it's very important that we have policies in place so that people can update documentation to make sure they have an accurate documentation to move through the world with, right? A driver's license or an ID that has an incorrect gender outs a transgender person every time, any situation they need to use that license, right? And that exposes people to a variety of negative outcomes. People receive unnecessary scrutiny from law enforcement, right? Denial of housing, denial of employment, health, public benefits, verbal harassment, often physical violence.
A study by the National Center for Trans Equality found that only about 1/3 of trans people have an updated name or gender change on their ID documents. Nearly 1/3 of the respondents who have shown an ID with the name or gender that didn't match their gender presentation were verbally harassed, denied benefits or service, asked to leave, or assaulted. Many trans people say that they will avoid putting themselves in situations where they have to show ID out of fear. Elijah Barksdale, a transgender man, said that he would do whatever it takes to avoid traveling by plane.
That's what I'm scared to do, actually. Because I know people on Instagram, I talk to people all over the world that are transgender. And they tell me stories. And I'm scared to go out of the state since I have transitioned. So I don't know if I would do it until I get my name changed. I would drive. I don't care. I will drive that 20 hours because I'm scared.
The dissenting judge, Justice Margaret Workman, wrote a dissent to the memorandum saying, quote, I dissent from this decision to affirm the lower court ruling Because the majority either completely missed the applicable legislative rule, which makes clear that the lower court has the authority to rule on this issue, or because they chose to duck a controversial issue. The judge argues that the case should have been set for argument and consideration rather than resolved in a memorandum decision. Justice Workman cited the 14th Amendment in her argument, which asserts that no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Though this might be the end of the line for this particular case, Andrew Schneider says that there are ways to fight this decision.
Large national groups like Land Illegal have routinely used federal courts to help transgender people get corrected birth certificates. In fact, in 2018, a federal court ruled that Idaho's policy, which prevented transgender people from correcting their birth certificate, was in violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. The judge overturned the policy and required state officials to issue corrections for transgender people. So I think that there are other avenues that we can explore to try to find justice and try to obtain fairness for transgender West Virginians. We just don't know exactly what route we're going to take yet. I feel ashamed that we're part of this group of states that discriminate in this way, and I will do whatever I can with fairness to try to change that.
Stay with W.Va as we continue to cover this issue. For WBOY.com, I'm Shayla Klein in Morgantown. Still to come in the Transitioning in West Virginia series, we'll talk about the other part of the ID equation, changing a name.
And the tension was so thick in the room at that point. And she read off my legal first name very, very loudly. And I said, yes. And then she said, well, you don't look like us. And yelled out my legal first name again, very loudly. And I said, it's because I'm trans.
Look out for part 2 next week in the Only on WBOY.com tab on our website.